is present. I declare the motion as amended passed.
Members' motion with no legislative effect. Mrs. Regina IP will move a motion on optimizing the use of land resources by expediting the development of outlying islands. 4 members will move amendments to the motion. This council will proceed to a joint debate on the motion and the amendments. Later, I will first call upon Mrs. Regina IP to speak and move the motion. Then I will call upon Mr. Frankie YICK, Mr. Chang Hok-fung, Mr. KWOK Wai-keung and Mr. Yim Kong to speak in sequence, but they may not move the amendments at this stage. The joint debate now begins. Members who wish to speak, please press the request to speak button. And I'll call upon Mrs. Regina IP to speak and move the motion. Thank you, President. I'm honored to be elected the Hong Kong Island West legislator in 2021. The Hong Kong Island West covers all outlying islands in Hong Kong, so this allowed me the opportunity to explore the outlying islands. In 2022, in the early part of it, I visited a number of islands, 10 islands, and so I see that there are very valuable resources in many of the outlying islands. The largest outlying island is Lemon Island. The largest outlying island, of course, is Lantau, and the second largest one is Lemon Island. Outlying islands cover about 208 square meters. 208 square meters in area in total. So it accounts for about 1/4 of the total area of Hong Kong. And then from the 2021 census, there are about 226,000 people living in the outlying islands, accounting for about 3.85% of our population. Now, in early 2022, I visited 10 different locations in the outlying islands. I see there is serious aging population because transportation is, these islands are not accessible, so young people choose to leave the islands and work in the urban districts. But then in the outlying islands, there are various valuable resources. Now, it could be a source of land supply to start with, and then there are really nice beaches, and there are temples, quiet, tranquil temples. There are also lush green woodlands. If you go to the outlying islands, it's like you are in Southeast Asia. If you go to Changsha or Potoi, well, actually it can compare with Potoi Islands in terms of its merits. So if we could develop the outlying islands properly, that will enhance the quality of living for the people of Hong Kong first. It could provide some land for residential purposes. There are also various recreational and leisure opportunities and potential in the outlying islands. And then we could also develop local tourism with special characteristics. Now, the Civil Engineering and Development Department set up the Sustainable Lantau Office with funding approved by us. The office has done much under the principle of development in the north and conservation for the south. For example, there is improvement to the transport link between the north and the south of Lantau, sewage works, improvement, and then improving the connectivity of the transport network. And then for South Lantau, the office did much to make possible a licensing regime for camping vans. Still, there are various challenges in relation to the development of Lantau. First of all, it's still very inaccessible. Now, if you want to go to Tai O, that's a world-renowned fishing village, like Venice in Italy, unless you have your own private yacht. You have to go via Tung Chung Road and then South Lantau Road from north to south, and then there's a winding road, South Lantau Road, and then you have to take Keung Shan Road. It takes at least half an hour, 1.5 hours before you get to Tai O. And then these roads are narrow and rather dangerous. And all these years, the government has never improved the road links there. For Lantau residents, best thing is for them to have the around the island route. But of course, this is a massive project, and the government is tight in finances, so I won't demand that you build this around the island route at once. But the Sustainable Land Office already has plans to build a tunnel linking Mui War and Discovery Bay to the east, and to the west there should also be a tunnel that links Shek Pik and Tai O. There are plans to do that, but they are not yet implemented. This will help to promote better transport connectivity. And then for Tai O there should be a road linking it to Tong Chung or Chek Lap Kok for better accessibility. So there's definitely a need to improve the traffic and transport network for Lantau. I hope you will ask the Sustainable Land Office to press ahead with these projects, the tunnel projects in particular, linking up the points I just mentioned. And then for other outlying islands, Lama Island, Ping Chau, Chang Chau, there are many beautiful beaches and good food. There's a nice coastline, but then again, they're not too accessible because the ferry piers are in rather poor condition, and the berthing length is not long enough. For example, for Lemma Island, for Motet Point, for Motet area, there is a the ferry pier there is short, and sometimes it's difficult for boats to berth, and that really stands in the way of the development of Lantau. Lantau Island is a nice scenery, but because it's not so accessible, so that's why there's little development. For Lemma Island, I must thank the Chief Executive for taking on board the suggestions of the New People's Party in the policy address. He's in paragraph 103 of the policy address, point 2, the government undertook to complete the study to map out the development direction of the 20-hectare site this year. Because there is a 20-hectare ex-Lama quarry site, there's also a 5-hectare artificial lake and 1 kilometer of beautiful coastline, and there are natural slopes as well. In fact, over a decade ago, the government conducted a study. In 2014, it completed phase 2 public engagement. There could be a water recreation center. Is a really nice lake called Sosum Lake. Professor Wang, you could go and inspect it. Right now, there is a YWCA village, but then the facilities are so dilapidated, usage rate, occupancy rate is low, and the YWCA admits to that too. Well, there's a 20-hectare ex-quarry site. It could be turned into a low-density residential development, and then it could be a water sports center. As for the coastline, it could become yacht club. In fact, Lama is close to Central. As long as the government would invest in the infrastructure, you could proceed with tendering as soon as possible. You could invite private developers to help with infrastructure investment, and very soon you'll be able to develop that area into a tourism destination. As for Lantau South, there is a recreation. There's going to be South Lantau conservation corridor. There's Shui Hao and other places could be developed there too. But then residents complain that they've not been consulted. You said you would only start consultation this year, but then before you started the land planning process, you did not do any consultation. Now South Lantau is to be developed into a ecology and conservation recreation corridor. 90% of the land is privately owned, but there's no consultation. And immediately you started with the town planning process. And some residents told me that they are going to the town planning board on the 2nd of February to express their objection, because there's no compensation. You just ask people to go to approach the conservation, the Land Tower Conservation Fund, but that is not really for landowners. Because you have to partner with some charitable organizations under Section 88 of the Inland Revenue Ordinance before they could get any fund from there. So it's not fair to landowners. So if the government wants to develop the Lemon Island and so on, you need to press ahead with your plans. You need to move much faster. For Mui War, for instance, you started improvement works in 2014, and only now you're in phase 2, stage 2, and there's another stage 3. And then Mui War ferry pier is so small, and it took 15 years to develop it and spending over $1 billion. So it's costing too much, and the government's moving too slowly. I hope the government will move much faster and better. Thank you. Mrs. Regina, you please move your motion. President, I move my motion. And I propose the question to you that Mrs. Regina Ip's motion be passed.
Mr. Frankie YICK. President, the issue of a shortage of land has been plaguing the logistics industry in Hong Kong. Over 80% of people think that there is a land shortage in Hong Kong logistics development. So in the planning stage, I hope some pieces of land will be earmarked for the development of the logistics industry, especially for Lantau Island, which has great geographical location. Over 110 hectares should be earmarked for the development of logistics, but for a decade, only 20 hectares or so have materialized as logistics land. In one of the policy addresses, a logistics park would be built in Siu Ho Wan. It didn't materialize. In West Tuen Mun, 38, 40, and 46, or even Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge on the topside development, study has to be conducted from scratch. It's uncertain whether the pieces of land will be used for logistics development. The industry can only turn to the brownfield sites in Northwest New Territories. According to a study, 1,400 hectares of the brownfield sites will almost have a warehouse storage, maintenance of vehicles, or the parking of heavy goods vehicles. The government has been resuming these brownfield sites for development for housing purposes. Some 1,600 hectares of land, half will be resumed for development. There is no lack of operations in relation to logistics. For the affected brownfield operators, apart from ex gratia allowances or compensation in Hung Shui Kiu Ha Chun, there will be construction of multi-story buildings for modern industries to rehouse the affected brownfield operators. But then we have failed to see any multi-story buildings for modern industries yet. As there is no seamless transition, some brownfield site operators cannot look for land, so they were forced to close down their businesses, affecting the ecological chain of the local logistics development. A supply of land is key. There are short-term tenancies for the development of land, but then the tenancies are short, and the highest bid wins principle will drive up the cost of land, which undermines the competitive edge of Hong Kong, which is not conducive to logistics development. In order to consolidate Hong Kong's logistics hub, it takes it, well, we should learn from Singapore. That is, the tenancy should last for 3 decades instead of 2 decades. That is to promote the long-term development of the local logistics development. The Northern Metropolis development has taken mold. There is limited land. In North Lantau, it has one of the busiest airport internationally. Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge is the double gateway connecting to the world. Comprehensive transport network connecting to Wai-keung Container Terminal and Tuen Mun Chek Lap Kok Link will also provide transport connectivity. and Timon Longkutan, which develops modern logistics development, and new Northwest New Territories will be connected to provide transport accessibility in order to promote multimodal transport development. If we can build a logistic park in Lantau, this will definitely boost the competitive edge of Hong Kong. Modern logistics is moving towards digitalization, but this is still a labor-intensive industry. Siu One development will provide sufficient manpower. And the third runway of Hong Kong International Airport will be able to handle 9 million of cargo volume. The Liberal Party would like to make use of the land in Lantau and outlying islands to develop the local logistics industry in order to cater for the demand for land. This will be conducive to the development of the logistics industry. I so submit Mr. Chen Hok-fung. Thank you, Mrs. Regina IP, for the motion on the development of outlying islands. We can once again review the development of outlying islands. The government has been promoting land supply with a multi-pronged approach. A total of 7,300 hectares of land will be added according to Hong Kong 2030 Plus. This reverses the trend of a lack of supply of land. There will be 1,000 hectares of land more. So in principle, there is no rush to look for large parcels of land in South Lantau, but in order to cater to the development of the community, we need to keep enhancing our spatial framework in order to make good use of our valuable land resources. In 2017, Sustainable Lantau Blueprint promotes the principle of development in the north and conservation for the south. There will be new economic development in the north. Most areas in Lantau, especially for South Lantau, will be used for conservation and village development. President, we need to have transport connectivity for economic development. Both South and West Lantau are met with transport problems. There is population intake in Tung Chung, but it takes 5 years before the commissioning of the Tung Chung East Station. This is not ideal. Even if Tung Chung East and Tung Chung West are added in the future, there is no mention of increased frequency of trains in order to catch up with the population intake of 180,000. We are not sure whether the 300,000 population will be able to enjoy the services. In the Lantau Conservation and Recreation Master Plan, there is Northwest Lantau Eco-Cultural Corridor, South Lantau Eco-Recreation Corridor, Rural Township Improvement and Hiking Hub for the enjoyment of the public. But we can only depend on the very narrow and winding Tung Chung Road. For the rounded island route between Mui Wo and Tung Chung, Tile is subject to inclement weather. It will become an isolated island. No people can go there to make any spending. The social community facilities fail to catch up with the times. In Tung Chung, the government has earmarked land for recreation purposes, but there is no standard sports ground or a recreational center. Residents need to go to Chin Wan. I hope community facilities will be enhanced in order not to let down the residents there. In the policy address last year, South Lantau is rich in ecological resources. In Pui O and Changsha, there can be more facilities. The Development Bureau will tap the pulse of the community this year. The younger generation have already moved to the urban area for development. These villages have the potential to develop into some resorts, but it is difficult to satisfy the requirements in the hostels or guest houses ordinance. But there is no flexibility to handle the situation in relation to guest houses. We can turn the area into a new leisure spot if we can make good use of the land over there. We need to adopt the infrastructure-led principle to improve the community facilities in order to shape Lantau into a livable place that is ideal for living, working, and traveling. Wai-keung. I thank Mrs. Regina IP for moving the motion about the land and development of the outlying islands in Lantau so that the Council can debate over this issue. I need to declare I'm a member of the Lantau Development Advisory Committee, LANDAC. My ancestors also live in Tai O. Just on outlying islands, Lanma, Chang Chau, Peng Chau, only Lantau has transport connectivity. There are roads. For other areas mentioned, boats are needed. Without transport connectivity, land use is hampered to a certain degree. But of course, we need to accord priority to solving the transport needs of the residents in order to improve their livelihood. The development of Lantau is key. Some scholars pointed out in the upcoming developments such as Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, it's been commissioned. We also have third runway system. Lantau is the gateway to Pearl River Delta. This is important to Hong Kong. It is important to the direction of the 8 major centers of Hong Kong, so development of Lantau is crucial. Members mentioned speed, time. These are the major issues. If development is still slow, how can we develop Lantau to a bridgehead economy and an airport city? President, many members have already mentioned, as we can see in many official documents, in Pt1 Lantau, from Tai Ho to Sunny Bay, starting from 2021, there was a study. It is expected that the study will be completed this year. Just the study alone takes 3 years. We are not sure how long it will take for the actual development. This is happening at the snail's pace. For the preliminary road network in South Lantau, starting from 2023, study commenced. It is expected that in 2025 the study will complete. When will it be constructed for the transport convenience of residents? How can it dovetail with the bridgehead economy development? We fail to see these. Many residents in Tung Chung, during the epidemic, there was a lack of positions, so they had to go to the urban area for work. It was far away, the transport cost was high, it was a headache to Tung Chung residents. If government needs to develop the new towns in Tung Chung, whether in small reclamation in East Tung Chung to build public housing or in West Tung Chung, new town development or Siu Ho Wan residential housing, the government should pick up its pace. The relevant housing developments will help increase manpower in Hong Kong. So for the development of bridgehead economy, there will be more manpower, so Tung Chung residents do not have to travel far with a high transportation cost to go to the urban area for work. The FTU has been emphasizing high-quality development so that citizens, especially for Tung Chung residents, have more higher quality positions for their upward mobility. I so submit.
Mr. Yim Kong. President, I would like to thank Mrs. Regina IP for moving the motion. Making good use of land resources in the outlying islands, improving the facilities there, and promoting development that will bring more visitors there. It will promote sustainable development. All these measures are essential. The government should pay attention to this subject. Now, for the outlying islands, in particular, Lantau, there is rich in cultural resources and historical value. The Sustainable Lantau Office published the Sustainable Lantau Blueprint. The blueprint points out that there is need for balanced development, and while we make sure there's conservation, we need to turn Lantau into a place ideal for living, business, tourism, recreation, and so on. And so as we improve conservation efforts and so on, we need to promote development there, and it should be infrastructure-led. We must first speed up the construction of the traffic and transport network, so that, and then we could develop industries such as tourism, health and wellness, environmental and new energy industries, and so on. As you know, many outlying islands have rich natural and historical resources that would help to the development of tourism and recreation. So we need to put various tourism and recreational facilities in different outlying islands. There's a need to coordinate the tourism resources and make these islands more attractive. And then we could work with Shenzhen and other cities in such as Zhuhai. And then together we could develop multi-destination itinerary. Apart from promoting tourism there, the government should also make good use of land resources there for the development of the health and wellness industry. Now, 20.8% of our population is the elderly, so we are an aging we have an aging population, so there's a need for us to promote health and wellness. We should take advantage of the geographical location of the outlying islands, and then we could build a health and wellness industry chain in the outlying islands. At the same time, we need to develop environmental and new energy industries. It's already a consensus, but then we're short of land resources. That's why it stands in the way of the development of such industries. In the Hong Kong 2030 Plus we could develop renewable energy, such as wind power, solar power, and so on, but they will only account for 3 to 4% of our power generation. Now, we will need to achieve carbon neutrality, and so we need to have enabling conditions to develop to achieve that target. Now, if there are proper infrastructure facilities, then we can develop, otherwise we can't. For South Lantau, now the roads there are not standard roads. Many roads are just 6.8 meters wide, and that again stand in the way of the development of South Lantau. So we need to have plans as soon as possible to improve the traffic and transport network and road links in South Lantau, Lantau and outlying islands. And then for outlying island residents and visitors, there must be more convenient and affordable ferry services. So I speak in support of the motion and the amendments. Thank you.
Secretary for Development. President, I thank Mrs. Regina IP for moving the motion, and Mr. Frankie YICK, Mr. Chan Hok-fung, Mr. Wai-keung, and Mr. Eric Yim for their amendments. Land development has everything to do with improving people's livelihood. It is the major growth impetus for our economy. That is why this government has always attached top priority to the issue. In his latest policy address, the Chief Executive adopted the theme, A Vibrant Economy for a Caring Community. Following this direction, we are increasing land supply through a multi-pronged approach with greater quantity, speed, efficiency, and quality. By building up the land reserve, we will take back the initiative in land supply. As pointed out in Hong Kong 2030 Plus towards a planning vision and strategy transcending 2030, in the final report, from 2019 to 2048, the land requirements of Hong Kong will be about 5,800 to 6,200 hectares. At the same time, it is stated in the report that the government has identified the sources of 7,000 hectares of land for meeting the estimated demand in the same 30-year period. This means that there will be at least 1,000 hectares of land reserve created after meeting the demand of the 30-year demand. Different development projects vary in technical complexity and development timetable. To ensure continuous and stable land supply, we will avoid over-reliance on individual projects, but rather adopt a multi-pronged approach. Of the 7,000 hectares of land I mentioned, some 4,000 will come from the two major development engines as the Northern Metropolis and the KWOK Artificial Island. The remaining supply will be met by different projects, including new land development projects, as well as replanning and modification projects. The developable land is mostly found in the urban areas and the new territories. For outlying islands, most developments will take place in northern Lantau, with rail and road links with the urban areas, including the Tung Chung New Town and its extension, as well as Siu Ho Wan. These developments are located in the north of the Lantau Island. The southern parts of Lantau Island will be conservation-focused under the planning vision of developments in the north and conservation for the south. For the other outlying islands, despite their small population, a lack of external land-based transports, and limited infrastructure capacity for supporting large-scale developments, these islands are blessed with rich ecological resources and unique natural and cultural characters, as mentioned by the members. There is great potential for eco-tourism if we properly develop them. Even when there is no mega-scale development, these outlying islands will support the developments in urban areas. I understand members are eager to share their thoughts with us on developing the Lantau Island, Dilemma, as well as other outlying islands. Without further ado, we will listen closely to members' views, after which we will give a consolidated reply on your concerns. I so submit. Thank you.
Ms. Doreen Kong. President, I would like to thank Mrs. Regina IP for moving her motion, and then Mr. Yim Kong, Mr. Frankie YICK, and Mr. Cheng Hok-fung, Mr. Wai-keung for moving their amendments. This allows us this opportunity for us to talk about the development of the outlying islands and their current status. Before we consider land development, first we need to look at our population projection. By 2046, the elderly population will increase to 2.74 million from the current 1+ million, and then young population will also decrease substantially. The birth fertility rate will be below 1 for a prolonged period. There may even be negative rate. Now, the government will need another 7,000 plus hectares of land, but then we have to consider the demographic structure in planning land development. Now, the Lantau is in a strategic position. We have various infrastructure completers such as the Hong Kong-Macau Bridge, the Chek-Lap-Kok Link, the free one-way system, and so on. And then there is the overall the outline development plan for Greater Bay Area. So Lantau will become a gateway to the international world. So as we plan, before we plan various developments, we have to first consider what the issues are. We must not just blindly pursue development. Now, for Lantau development, has high ecological value, And then the cost benefits for developing lantau is limited though. Now lantau covers a huge area, but then there are many hills and mountains, and so the development, the site formation cost will be much higher. And then there is insufficient infrastructure. It can't cope with huge additional population, and also it's not well connected in terms of traffic and transport. There are not alternative routes, and there is not enough connectivity with other parts of the territory. So, and then if there is an accident, then there is no alternative route taking people to Tung Chung. That's why the government needs to improve traffic and transport there. For the outlying islands, government could adopt a new mindset. Now, Hong Kong is known to others as a shopping paradise or skyscrapers, but then they know little about the natural environment of Hong Kong. That's because the government has not done enough publicity. Now, consumption patterns are changing. Visitors prefer to visit rural places. Pt1 is actually packed with people on holidays, so that means there is need for such demands because there are many camping sites in Pt1. So government should develop the camping the industry and bring more visitors to stay overnight in Hong Kong. Now, the reason why visitors choose to leave the same days because there's not enough supply of hotel rooms of a lower rate, and then there's no development of B&B facilities either, bed and breakfast facilities. Now, in Japan, for instance, for example, German government allows small towns to provide B&B services and so on. So perhaps in Tung Fuk and Pt1, sites should be set aside for special bed and breakfast facilities. And then there could also be more camping sites for those who are keen on camping. The government should always bear in mind balanced development of both conservation and development. It shouldn't just focus on existing resources. Lantau has advantages in terms of the scenery and so on. So the government should explore the potential of Lantau and bring more visitors there and promote our tourism sector. Thank you. Mr. Chen Yong. Thank you, President. I'm grateful to Mrs. Regina IP, Mr. Frankie YICK, Mr. Chen Hok-fung, Mr. KWOK Wai-keung, Mr. Yim Kong for their discerning views on the subject. I'm in favor of all the motion and the amendments. Mr. Chen Hok-fung of the DAB has always been promoting development in this area all this time because he's a member of the constituency. Now, we need to make good use of our very limited resources and speed up development. I'm sure most would agree. And then Mr. Chen Hok-fung mentioned the Sustainable Lantau Blueprints published in 2017. That is development in the north and conservation for the south. So we know what that means, north and south. But then in Chinese, it's north sounds the same as do not. So instead of development in the north becomes no development in the north, and people won't get it if they don't read the writing and just and they may hear it wrong. So we need to tell people that we could have both conservation and development in the north. There will be development, and in the south there will be more conservation. So we could achieve both on the island. And then many local residents, intellectuals, professionals, or local residents in the outlying islands, old people, they come up with ingenious views. For example, they could bring more international visitors there. People don't just come here for a modern city. They want to be close to nature. So if they go to the outlying islands, there will be something that suits them. so that we may have natural conservation zone, and then we could also have yacht clubs. We can bring, large private yachts from overseas to come here, from Southeast Asia in particular, come here. It won't affect the traffic and transport network, but at the same time it helps to expand capacity. Now, Ms. Chen Ming's pet project is called the Northern Metropolis. The burial facilities won't be expanded further in the Northern Metropolis, but then in Hong Kong, say in the far out islands, maybe they could be developed into burial facilities and crematorium and columbarium and so on. And so this idea could work, because some in the funerary industry say that it's hard to get space now. If you could have such a development on remote island, then it will be good for the deceased. Because if you have development of this sort on an island, the deceased won't need other infrastructure facilities like roads and so on. So there's no need for too much infrastructure, but then perhaps for the two tomb sweeping festivals, and there will be special transport services. So this way, we could put such facilities on a remote island, and then we could also provide facilities for those in need. Now, near the airport, there may be some sites for religious use that can be for religious use, and believers will come here. And then golf, if people can play golf after they get off the plane, maybe you could also build a world-class golf course near the airport. And then we're going to have the airport city, and then Bridgehead economy logistics parks. Now, I'm running out of time, but all these ideas could be explored further. Please, listen to the collective wisdom of the community. For all outlying islands, not just Lantau, we could achieve both conservation and development. And in the next decade or two, we could then focus on economic development for the livelihood of the people. Thank you.
Mr. Ambrose Lam, President, as early in 2014, the government established the Lantau Development Advisory Committee. A consultant was engaged to conduct a 3-year study, and the product is a feasibility study on developments on Lantau Island. The report suggested establishing adventurous activities in Mui Wo, and also building cycling tracks and beach volleyball pitches in Lantau. 10 years on, we only have the Great Buddha and Mickey Mouse. So I thank Mrs. Regina IP for moving today's motion so that we can discuss how to develop the outlying islands better. Because of the pandemic, visitors' patterns have changed. In the past, they were shopaholics. Now they are choosing in-depth travel more, in particular ecotourism. According to the AFCD, more than 1 million people visit our country parks each year. Many Hong Kong people would choose rural areas or countryside when they visit Japan to get a taste of the rural life and enjoy the natural scenery. We have a lot of rural tourism resources worth developing in Hong Kong. It can boost our tourism economy. Over 40% of our land is country park and special areas. We have 24 country parks and 22 special areas, and 7 marine parks and 2 geoparks. For overseas tourists to reach these destinations, it is extremely inconvenient. It takes an hour or two to reach the outlying islands from urban areas. But with that much traveling time, you can go to other cities in GBA. visitors have to leave early because there is a lack of accommodation facilities in rural areas. The government allows religious bodies to conduct meditation activities in rural areas, but you do not allow rural villages to host guests. Just now, there is the first hostel accommodation in Lai-chi-wo. So imagine how difficult it is to apply for a license. There are all sorts of hoops to jump through, and you have remodified your village houses to meet the requirements. You have to meet the requirements under the buildings ordinance and the fire requirements. Village houses have to go through town planning board's approval before they can become hostels. It is because the requirements are based on an urban setting. The legislation hasn't catered for the developments in villages. So I suggest the government changing the law to facilitate development in rural areas. Now, Section 25 of the Country Park Ordinance sets out that for areas covered by a lease for development purpose, the chief executive has the discretion to exclude the said area from a country park. So it depends on whether you have the will. I hope after this motion is passed, the government will be more determined to develop rural tourism and boost the economy. Thank you. Mr. Jeffrey Lam. Thank you, President. In 2021, in October, the Hong Kong 2030 Plus Vision final report was published. It was pointed out that from 2019 to 2048, the land requirements of Hong Kong will be about 5,800 to 6,200 hectares. Compared with the estimated 4,800 hectares in 2016, there was a significant increase. We do have land. We have a lot of land underutilized in outlying islands. The government should study utilizing the land resources on outlying islands, especially the Lantau Island, so that we have more space to develop. At present, the total area of our outlying islands amounts to 319 hectares. Because of historical and geographical reasons, all along there is a lack of comprehensive development strategy for our outlying islands. Among the 260 outlying islands in Hong Kong, they are managed by the 11 district councils. Village heads and village representatives are scattered among various rural committees. There is a scattered approach in terms of developments on tourism, transportation, or even cross-boundary tourism. It affects the progress of various projects. The BPA suggests a single unit be set up with $5 billion funding injection to improve management and development of outlying islands and rural areas. The committee should cover infrastructure development, promotion of rural tourism, inheritance of culture, as well as emergency support. The government should establish a closer relationship with rural committees to enhance the livelihood, transportation, and medical health care on outlying islands. We must be quicker and more aggressive in alleviating the lack of healthcare and public facilities on outlying islands. For example, the lack of police and medical resources on Lama, the lack of schools on Pingzhou, and so on. A lot of land on outlying islands are parts of country parks, and they are regulated by the Country Park Ordinance. Some lands really have low conservation value. In the long run, the government should review the conservation model for country parks. And assess whether it is up to date. There are very rich tourism resources on outlying islands. If we can establish a tourism circle on outlying islands, I bet it will be very popular. The Invigorating Island South scheme should be extended to Pt1 Island and Wai-keung. We can form a massive tourism node and attract a lot of tourists to these islands. To enhance traveling experience, the government should enhance public transport services and speed up the construction of the 2 tunnels and 1 bridge connecting Lantau Island with the urban areas to enhance the visitor reception capacity of Lantau Island. There should also be a study on water transport. The financial positions and positioning of ferry operators should be reviewed. Support should be given to ferry operators. Concerning the KYC artificial island positioning, it should be a comprehensive body comprising the functions of living, working, traveling, and shopping, so as to offer a diversified range of jobs. Land development is closely related to people's livelihood and our economy. The government should make the best use of outlying islands' resources to boost the economy. I support the motion. Mr. Rokshan, President, we face a serious shortage of land supply, but there is a lot of unutilized land on outlying islands. I support Mrs. Regina IP's motion to develop outlying islands to become places suitable for working, living, and traveling. Now we are talking about some 260 islands, accounting for 16% of our land, with only 180,000 population. It is the district with the second smallest population in Hong Kong. Now the size of these islands are 100 hectares to 1,400 square meters large. Now, Lantau Island is 2 times the size of Hong Kong Islands. It has great potential for development. So first, we have to review the development strategy of developments in the north and conservation for the south. The overarching principle was put forward under the Sustainable Lantau Blueprint. That is, northern and eastern Lantau would be used for developing housing and leisure activities. The south would be for conservation and recreation. In this day and time, I think this principle has neglected the diversity of Lantau. For conservation, we have to think broader than natural landscape. We have to think about economy as well. We have the longest stretches of beach on Lantau and also fishery villages with rich history. Based on the characteristics of each area, we have to set out targeted development policy rather than adopting an across-the-board approach. Second, we have to build a road, an 11-kilometer long coastal road linking up South Lantau and Tung Chung. Now we are only relying on the South Lantau Road to connect South Lantau with the urban area. It is narrow and it is inconvenient. It takes 43 minutes to traverse the road. For public transport, the journey is 1 hour long. It is extremely inconvenient for the residents and it limits development potential. At its peak, there were 30,000 residents in Taiyo. Now there are only 2,500. I have a friend who lives in Taiyo. He works in Central. Every day he spends 5 hours in commuting 5 hours. If the government neglects developing transport on Lantau Island, how many people will be willing to live on the Lantau? So the government should speed up studying possible roads to facilitate developments in rural areas and facilitate population intake from urban area. Third, Sunny Bay should be developed into a warehouse node. It enjoys proximity with the border control points and also the international airport. It can engage in convenient trading with the mainland through the Zhuhai airport. And also, the new territories, brownfield site operators can move to the area. We should resume the 80-hectare reclamation projects in Sunny Bay and use the land for warehouse and logistic businesses. It will encourage employment on Lantau as well as supporting the development of high-end logistics industry and consolidate our position. Thank you.
Mr. Yu Pak Leung. Thank you, President. I speak in support of the motion moved by Mrs. Regina IP as well as other amendments. I'd like to focus on Lantau development. In 2017, the government promulgated South Lantau Sustainable Lantau Blueprint, the principle of development in the north. The 3-runway system has been commissioned. Frozen theme park 11 Sky have been commissioned as well. North Lantau, the development is in full steam, but in south, there hasn't been any change seen yet. Are we not going to do anything? Well, the government issued Lantau Conservation and Recreation Master Plan. We haven't yet seen any implementation. The debate today reflects the importance attached to the development of Lantau. To make good use of the resources on Lantau, we can build a diversified tourist spot. It is a new tourist attraction and we cannot drag our feet. From the perspective of travel experience, there are 3 layers. 1.0, an access closer to water sports. 2.0, beach, coastline, water recreational sports, yacht, resort facilities. 3.0, resort of consumers. This will provide custom-made travel experience. Lantau boasts rich ocean resources. 1.0 can be increased to 3.0 right now, but unfortunately, we are still in the basic 1.0 phase. There hasn't been any improvement for a long time. Regarding high-quality travel products, I haven't yet seen any. In order to boost Lantau from 1.0 to 2.0, to enhance Lantau, to boost the high-quality development of Lantau, we can introduce experienced travel agencies. We can make good use of the resources of South Lantau in order to build a high-quality resort in Lantau. This can plug the gap of a lack of hotels in Lantau. There are great views. There are also many hiking trails with good views. We can attract many tourists. Back to 3.0, after the epidemic, there's a change in tourists' demands. We need to start with the motive or the wish of tourists. In mainland, between work and studies, well, young people would like to go to the suburban area. It's just like a joke. But we can see that people would like to escape from the bustle and hustle of the city. We can revitalize the tourist attractions and build an all-new travel attraction. We can also introduce some courses in relation to religion. This way, we can attract tourists from overseas. They will come to Hong Kong. We can also connect the different tourist attractions in different places in outlying islands. We can also make good use of Ngongping 360 to connect the islands in the vicinity of Lemma Island in order to build a golden tourist attraction. Actually, Hong Kong has a lot of good resources. We have great potential to develop blue and green travel. We can build diversified tourist attraction with different themes, such as cycling and so on. We can make good use of the resources in Lantau towards the direction of sustainable tourism development. I so submit. Thank you, President. Mr. Chen Xiu-hong. Thank you, President. I thank Mrs. Regina IP for moving the motion on optimizing the use of land resources by expediting the development of outlying islands so the Council can debate it in detail. I speak in support of the motion as well as other amendments. Land supply hampers the development of the community as well as the economic development. The government has been looking for land and rolling out measures streamlining environmental assessments and other administrative procedures. There are also other measures to expedite different administrative procedures to make sure there will be a stable supply of land in Hong Kong in order to cater for the need of different businesses as well as housing needs. People will have land to retire. In the 2030 promulgated by the government, that is the Planning Vision Strategy Transcending 2030, from 2019 to 2048, within 30 years, the demand is some 6,200 hectares. In 2023 policy address, the chief executive has said that we have already located 7,300 hectares of land, surpassing the need. We will have a land reserve of 1,000 hectares or so. It seems the vision is good enough right now. The progress is good. According to the latest estimate, the Development Bureau said that in the coming decade, that is from 2024 to 2045, there will be spade-ready land available. Over 1,400 hectares are from the Northern Metropolis. Some 400 hectares of land are from KWOK artificial islands. The Northern Metropolis has been taken forward at full steam, but it is still in the implementation phase. KWOK artificial island is still in the pipeline. Exploring land and developing land takes a long time, so we need to adopt a multi-pronged approach. Outlying islands, including Lemma Island, still has many pieces of land underutilized. The government should study how to make good use of city planning and other strategies to make good use of every single inch of land. With Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, Twin Moon Chat-Lap-Kok Link, 3-runway system at the Hong Kong International Airport, the double gateway playing as a convergent point for leisure, entertainment, and tourism. This is an important hub. We have the conditions to build a bridgehead economy to promote the development of economy and society. We can also enhance the status of modern logistics in Hong Kong. Last year, I submitted a proposal to the policy address studying moving the Wai-keung container terminal to Lemma Island. So the 330 hectares of land in Wai-keung can be used to build public housing. This can also provide logistics land for Hong Kong. In the future, KWOK artificial islands will build a connecting road connecting different places in Hong Kong. There will also be a 30-kilometer long railway connecting the western part of Hong Kong Island to another place in Hong Kong. This will greatly enhance traffic connectivity in Hong Kong. There were exploration studies for different traffic infrastructures, which will greatly boost accessibility. This creates conditions for moving the Wai-keung container terminal to Lemma Island. This will provide land for the logistics development. We can also house brownfield site operators affected by the government by building multi-story buildings for modern industries. I hope that the government will look for land and build a sufficient land reserve so that we can break the bottleneck of a lack of land. I so submit. Thank you, President. Mr. Chan Kim-por. Thank you, President. Hong Kong 2030 Plus points out that in 2048, the land demand is 6,200 hectares. We have already identified sufficient land, but there are two main projects, including 1,000 hectares of KWOK artificial island and 3,000 hectares of land in the northern metropolis. We have great ambitious plans to promote the 8 major centers in Hong Kong. Hong Kong should have vision for the long-term development of Hong Kong. We should not be affected by a lack of land which affect our pace. So I thank Mrs. Regina IP for moving the motion so that we can focus on discussing this issue. The lack of land has been affecting Hong Kong, affecting residents in Hong Kong, and hindering the development of the local economy. We hope to resolve the long-standing conflicts. That is, we need to ensure a stable supply of land in the long term. Many experts think that Hong Kong needs to have 10 million population in order to promote the development. That is why we need to boost the birth rate. This is necessary for boosting the development of Hong Kong. In the great debate of land in 2018, there were discussions, and I think that the government should follow up on different proposals, such as the study about Pt1. According to the principle of development in the north and conservation for the south, there is still much room for enhancement, including Tung Chung New Town Extension Project. Sunny Bay and Pt1 reclamation can also be looked at or looked into. There are also many areas of caverns and other underground spaces for development. We can look into all these. We can still study the nitty-gritty in due course. The government is studying traffic connectivity from West Island to Sunny Bay. We can build a railway to reach Tianhai, so the two core business zones can be connected through the northern metropolis and North Lantau to reach the Greater Bay Area directly. It will go through Sunny Bay, so there will be connection with Hong Kong International Airport as well. This route will be the main artery of Hong Kong. Many more businesses will be able to set up their companies in the GBA, but the KWOK artificial islands have limited land. When GBA develops well in the future, there is bound to be a lack of land in the future. The northern metropolis can provide support. It is close to artificial islands. We can foster the development of the artificial islands, so we need to look for land. We also need to make good use of the land in North Lantau in order to create more conditions for future development. There are difficulties, but I think this is a necessary process in upgrading and transformation of industries. We need to develop with vision and implement all development plans in a determined manner to help industries upgrade and transform. This way, we can help Hong Kong develop. Thank you, President.
Reverend Peter Kuhn. We have a shortage in land resources, and then landed housing have been plaguing our economy and people's livelihood. The living conditions are becoming poorer for the people. The housing is more expensive, but space is less. So there are plenty of complaints from the people. And then we need to address the pressing land issue. The government needs to take a multi-pronged and proactive approach. It should develop land on all fronts and optimize land resources. Now, a few years ago, we started the big land debate, and there was a suggestion of developing the periphery of country parks and green belts, and it was a controversial idea. But then that will help to provide quality, large area of quality land for our development in the near, middle, and long term. Now, if we take coastal parks, green belts, and sitting out areas together, then we have enough land compared to Japan, South Korea, and Singapore. Our country parks are huge. Take for Singapore. They have the largest number of country parks in Asia, but then the size is 20 times less than that of Hong Kong. Still, the residents there are very happy about their greening effort, the government's greening effort and conservation effort. So that's why Singapore is renowned as a garden city. But then in Hong Kong, 40% of our land is used as country park. But then people often refer to Hong Kong as a concrete jungle. So if you want to turn a city green, overall land planning should be on quality, not so much quantity. In the new territories and outlying islands, especially land at the periphery of village environments, the planning approach is now baffling. For example, Ping Chau and Tai O at the town centers, the information shows that large tracts of developer land is zoned as a village development. So even commercial land use is now turned into village development. That means making this land lose their commercial value. And then it's totally not in line with our demands for land supply. Now, conservation, of course, is important, but then at the same time, we must not overlook the ultimate objectives of town planning, and the provision of country parks is all people-oriented. You can imagine hundreds of thousands in the grassroots sector have to pay high rents. Over 200,000 are inadequately housed in subdivided units, and the elderly are forced to live in crowded residential care homes for the elderly. So how can we live with that? And especially for a responsible government. Okay, environmental protection is important, but does mean that we put environmental protection above the people. Now, in fact, in Hong Kong, we have plenty of land that could be developed, but then we just leave all the sites idle. We're not making good use of such land resources to address the basic needs of the people. We need to address the land shortage problem, but then the government is so rigid. It has to break out of its own mentality. Now, there's need to strike a balance between conservation and development, especially for the peripheries of country parks and green belts. We should consider turning such sites into housing development. We need to tell the public clearly the pros and cons in so doing. If all departments are committed, I'm sure we'll be able to address the land shortage as soon as possible. We'll see ray at the end of the light at the end of the tunnel, and then many of the other issues will be solved. I speak in support of the motion and the amendments. Mr. Sunny Tan. Thank you, Deputy President. In the 14th Five-Year Plan, Hong Kong is to be developed into 8 centers. We need to promote the development of Hong Kong, and we need different types of talents. At the same time, we need land resources. We want to promote the sustainable development of our economy. We need to meet future development needs, so we need to keep creating space and capacity for Hong Kong. In the outlying islands, there are many land resources that are not yet developed. And then we also have the 1,000-hectare KWOK artificial islands that will be a potential source of land supply. So I want to see the speeding up of such development to promote the high-quality development of Hong Kong as a whole. Now, we can optimize the use of land resources in the outlying islands and consolidate our unique advantages. First, Hong Kong is an aviation and logistics hub internationally. Our airport has a throughput of 4.2 million tons. It's the busiest cargo airport. So we need to make use of the resources available to expand the scale of our aviation and logistics sectors. And then we could then consolidate our advantage as an aviation hub. For national development, Belt and Road initiatives, and GBA development that brings us opportunities. And so we are seeing immense opportunities to the aviation and logistics sector. The Hong Kong International Airport has built this logistics park together with the Dongguan authorities in Dongguan. And then so goods could be cleared there, and then they could be sent to Hong Kong for onward shipment to other to their destinations by air. So it's a very good arrangement. I hope there will be further improvement of the infrastructure facilities, and there should be complementary development in GBA. We can make use of the outlying islands resources to expand our logistics capacity, and then we could also promote the development of cold chain logistic facilities, and Hong Kong could become an important cold chain logistics hub. Now, if Hong Kong try to compete with others on prices, it probably won't work. Instead, we should highlight the special characters of Hong Kong. We must go for high quality and high value added development. We need to promote mega event economy and convention and exhibition economy. In the outlying islands, especially the KWOK artificial islands, there should be more recreational, leisure, and tourism facilities, or convention and exhibition centers, and so on. There could also be water sports centers and so on. And then, of course, outlying islands have a rich cultural and green resources as well. And then on all fronts, we could bring high-spending visitors and business travelers to Hong Kong, and that will promote our economic development. In Yaoqing and Shenzhen, there are many old buildings, and there's the possibility of redevelopment. And then in the outlying islands, there's going to be much housing supply in the long run. So there is strategic value for developing such sites. Perhaps the government could set aside some of the land for high-end iconic buildings such as arts museum or even opera house. And then in the urban areas, we have hotels and catering facilities. And then together, we could promote the development, the synergistic development of Kai-Tak and other new areas. And then for Sham Shui Po, land could be then be freed up for the development of the fashion industry. Then we could have a fashion and design base in Sham Shui Po. The outlying islands would become an important bridgehead for our economic development. So the government needs to speed up the development of the outlying islands, and then there will be more impetus for the development of the 8 centers in Hong Kong. Thank you. I speak in support of the motion and amendments. Mr. Stephen Ho. Thank you, Deputy President. I would like to thank Mrs. Regina IP for moving the motion. Now, Mr. Sunny Tan mentioned the 14th five-year plan. In the 14th five-year plan, there's mention of marine economy. And then in the 13th five-year plan, actually, there's also mention of developing the marine economy. Now, I represent the agriculture fishery sector, of course. Marine economy is important to me. I started to talk about making good use of the islands even back in 2012. And then there's mention of the Kwai Shan Island development before. And then we actually paid a visit. It's actually just 20 minutes away from the tip of Hong Kong. When I started talking about developing the islands, people thought I was odd. But now, today, we have this motion debate, it's a good thing. So now there is this platform for us to better understand these ideas. Mr. Frankie YICK mentioned logistics. There are other directly elected members. They talk about district facilities, bread and breakfast facilities, and so on. For many years, we've also asked for development of tourism using our fishing vessels. Now, can we take guests to go on board our fishing vessels and take them on leisure fishing? But then the Marine Department says, no, we can't do that because of all the rules and regulations. But can we be result-oriented? Don't just tell us the law doesn't allow you to do this and that. Now, there is a boat in Hong Kong, in Aberdeen, is well known for its fishball rice noodles. But then the FHD made it difficult for the boat that's supposed to go around the typhoon shelters, but then the FHD wanted to carry out inspection, so they make the boat stationary. And then a few days ago, the new vessel has now been docked, but then still hasn't got a license yet. Anyway, even for near-shore marine economy, it's so difficult for us to develop that. So for artificial islands or outlying islands, there is need for better departmental coordination and collaboration. And land resources are so scarce in the urban areas, and then can we move our husbandry industries and so on to the islands, but then other people complain. And then with the free runway system or the incinerators, we have many coastal marine parks. But then in marine parks, fishing is not allowed. Of course, they're starting to consider the possibility. And even for fishermen who want to fish in the vicinity, there are so many restrictions. So we are not creating value, economic value from our waters. And in your original plan, just outside local town, there's actually a coastal park. Well, there people should be allowed to fish, and the fishing festival should be allowed to take people out fishing. But no, it's not yet the case yet. And then, when as soon as the country talks about 14 5-year plan, they are already doing that with INT. The promoting there's development of marine development. What about hydrogen-fueled vessels? There is research now. Hong Kong should actually be the backup area for the development of marine economy, and we should work with other authorities to develop Guaishan Island. And now our fishermen go outside. The 5G Wi-Fi, it costs $1,000 per gigabyte. But then the country is so advanced, it's now costs just a few tens of dollars. But in Hong Kong, we don't allow this technology. So the R&D, the R&D is done in Hong Kong, but now development is commercialization is back in Shenzhen. So we want to become INT center. We can't just, or the other 8 centers, we can't just focus on INT. Our R&D outcome needs to stay in Hong Kong. That means in future, we'll have to buy the INT products from other places when the R&D was actually done in Hong Kong. Your time is up.
Mr. Ban Chan. Thank you, Deputy President. I also thank Mrs. Regina IP for moving today's motion on optimizing the land resources on the Lantau Island. When I was sitting at the Lantau Development Advisory Committee, the blueprint was promulgated. There was the overarching principle of development in the north and conservation for the south. So how much has been conserved in the south? A decade on, the conservation progress has halted. On the other hand, there is not much of a development in the north. In the south, a lot of villagers are disgruntled. Many landowners told me that they possess land and houses, but their land was zoned as conservation land and they were not allowed to build anything or even farm on the land. They need pre-approval from the government departments. There may be some fish in the pond and they have to be conserved. So it means that the land value has dropped to zero. So what's good to have a land? You have to pay tax for the land as well. Some landowner use the land for a caravan campsite, but then they got harassed by enforcement agencies and then they had to close their campsite. So we have a pristine environment in South Lantau. So what uses are there for the land besides grazing and idling? Today, when we talk about expediting the development of conservation and development, we have to revisit the concept. Are the two concepts mutually exclusive, or are they not in conflict of each other? In conservation, we can create values for the place, and that would be meaningful. We are not trying to keep the entire land a grazing zone for oxen. We have to develop while conserving the land. We have to develop the tourism values of the Lantau Island. We have to work with the villagers to develop the land to a certain extent while having conservation in mind. Now, for lands zoned for specific scientific purposes, compensation should be offered to the landowners because this is ancestral land we are talking about. There is a population boom to the north of Lantau. There are houses being built in Tongchong as planned in the early vision. For Sunny Bay, we are conducting reclamation, so I have a suggestion for the future reclaimed land. It should be made a tourism node. We are famous for the efficiency of our public transport system. We have a lot of train and bus fanatics who flock to take photographs whenever a new train or bus is commissioned. So maybe we can exhibit our public transport and make it a museum for our public transport. A member suggested building a motor racing tracks in the area. We can also showcase our history of vehicle testing and research. We can even build a motor-themed hotel for children to enjoy themselves in. Now, we have an advantage because all our cars are right-hand drive. We can be a testing center for all cars with right-hand drive system. And we can become famous as a motor racing town. Thank you. Mr. Kenneth Lau. Deputy President, with the completion of the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge and the Tuen Mun Chet Kok Tunnel, Lantau Island, positioned right next to the Hong Kong International Airport, enjoys better connectivity with the Pearl River Delta and other cities in the GBA. It became a double gateway to the world and the GBA. We should seize the unique advantage of the Lantau Island and make the best use of the land resources. I suggest turning North Lantau into a characteristic node comprising residential functions, commercial functions, and industrial functions. For the south, we have to bear in mind conservation, but engage in suitable developments in respect of cultural and historical tourism. We should create a rich tourism experience for the south and make the two sides complement each other. The Lantau Island is the largest outlying island in Hong Kong. It has rich land resources. North Lantau includes Tung Chung Siu Ho Bay and the Asia World Expo area and the airport. It has great potential to be developed into a node with rich residential function, commercial, exhibition and convention, and hotel accommodation. At present, the Tung Chung New Town extension project is underway. It covers Tung Chung New Town East and West. For Tung Chung East, there will be a 130-hectare large reclamation project. It is equivalent to 2 Victoria Park, and there will be 94,000 housing units provided. 40,000 will be from Tung Chung East, and there will be an 87,000 square meters commercial GFA to accommodate the new population, creating 40,000 job opportunities. The Tung Chung town development is progressing swiftly. There will be new hotels, and also we have the Disneyland Resorts, the Asia World Expo, the Sky City, and so on. It is an area comprising business, housing, industries, and so on. There is much synergy in the area. It will also serve visitors visiting South Lantau for leisure. Now, for South Lantau, there is rich tourism resources, including the Great Buddha, the Ngong Ping markets, and the Ngong Ping 360. We have Puyo Fishery Village, as well as the salt pan and so on. This is a great place to go to in summer. The government should encourage development of low-density residential housing, as well as resorts to make it tourism-friendly. We should make reference to Stanley. It is a famous tourism spot in Hong Kong. There is a market, and we also have the Murray House with the Oriental and Western design. So we can duplicate this success in South Lantau. For Mui Wo, we can make it a lodging area with local characteristics. Now, by developing quality tourism in South Lantau, we can make the cake bigger and inject a new impetus into our economy. Now, we only have to enhance the transportation network in the area to create the conditions for this future. Now, North Lantau transportation network has exceeded its capacity. We need to enhance the external transportation between Lantau and the urban areas, as well as connection between North and South and West and East Lantau. We should widen Tung Chung Road, South Lantau Road, and also the Tai O section of the highway to ensure that the unique characteristics of the Lantau Island is appreciated by all. Thank you. Dr. Low Wai-keung. Deputy President, I thank Mrs. Regina IP for moving the original motion and the 4 other members for moving the amendments. We have a serious shortage of land supply. It seriously limited the supply of housing. In 2010, 2020 plus towards a planning vision and strategy transcending 2030 was promulgated. According to the final report, the land requirements of Hong Kong between 2019 to 2048 will be about 5,800 to 6,200 hectares. There are some 3,200 hectares of land which is almost developed. Now, in the medium to long run, there are 4,100 hectares of potential land from the KYC, Artificial Island, Northern Metropolis, and some reclamation projects. Now, on our outlying islands, including Lantau, we have a lot of underutilized land. The BPA and myself agree that the government should speed up development of land resources on outlying islands to create more space for development. The star of outlying islands is the Lantau Island. It is the largest island in Hong Kong. In 2017, the Sustainable Lantau Development Blueprint was promulgated with the overarching principle of development in the north, conservation for the south set. Now, with the completion of the infrastructure projects in the area, the strategic positioning of Lantau was confirmed. Now, according to the 2030 plus, the creation of a Western Economic Corridor was promulgated covering Northwest New Territories, as well as the KYC Artificial Island and North Lantau, to leverage the potential of a bridgehead economy and an airport city. The government must enhance development of infrastructure in the area, including implementing the Sky City project. I declare that I am a board member of the HAA and also a member of the Lantau Development Advisory Council and also a member of the Northern Metropolis Advisory Council. Now, in terms of population and geographical characteristics, the North and South are different. There is a lack of comprehensive development strategies for outlying islands, which results in insufficient resources. Some islands are close to urban areas. With proper planning, they can become new communities to alleviate our population and housing stress. The government has the main responsibility in land creation. There has to be a cross-departmental body to steer development of outlying islands to create a win-win situation for all. This term of the government has been actively removing red tapes and enhance the speed of land creation. I support that, but as Mr. Frankie YICK mentioned, when resuming land for development purposes, a lot of brownfield site operators are facing difficulties, including the construction industry. Many brownfield site operators supporting the construction industry, for example, warehouses for construction materials and repair shops for construction machineries, they have been strangled by the resumption policy. Without the brownfield sites, they cannot survive. So the government should think more about giving support to existing operators. There should be proper relocation supports for these operators. Otherwise, we can't enhance the speed and quantity of development. Now, there is a dedicated team to help the affected operators to find new sites. But there is only so much they can do. When there is simply no land to accommodate these operators, the construction industry's performance would be affected. It would also affect the progression of public works projects. It will also affect the livelihood of the construction industry. It has huge implication. I strongly urge the relevant government officials to pay attention to this key issue affecting our development. Before resuming brownfield sites, the government must first create new land to relocate the operators. I so submit. Thank you.
Mr. Chen Chen-ying, Deputy President. Lantau has the largest area of land across 18 districts. We need to enhance the International Aviation Center Lantau Island has Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge and Hong Kong International Airport. It connects other parts of the world. It brings benefits to the local economic development. We can also consolidate the status of trade in Hong Kong. I thank Mrs. Regina IP's motion as well as the amendments moved by another 4 members. We need to leverage the expansive area of Lantau in order to provide more development opportunities for different industries. In 2017, the Sustainable Lantau Blueprint confirmed 4 strategies, including the PRD International Logistics Hub, PRD Asia Service Hub, Strategic Hub, and the Metropolis. In the same year, the Hong Kong issued Hong Kong 2030, setting out some strategic development areas, such as the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, Hong Kong Port, Topside Development, Tung Chung New Town Commercial Center. There are some developments in planning, under planning, but there is no interim review to assess the progress on these developments. There is only one large-scale new town, that is Tung Chung New Town. It provides some residential areas for workers at the airport. It becomes the high-density housing development right now. The government should review the positioning of Tung Chung. It should be part of the airport city. So there will be more job opportunities in the area to dovetail with the development of Lantau. Discovery Bay is also a mature area. On land use, infrastructures, and services provided, there are economic benefits. Mui Wo, Tai O, Pui O, with the theme of low-density development and conservation, Lantau provides good reference. There is also underutilized land in the area to provide coordinated development. Tai O, Lamma Island have different festivals with features of the island's districts. They are different from other travel experiences in other parts of Hong Kong. They attract tourists from overseas. There is a lack of infrastructures. Some islands lack public facilities. Apart from public holidays, not many tourists visit these areas. The administration should have strategies to develop tourist attractions using these vacant places to provide room for artists so that we can create some festivals with the features of the island's district. In Sha Tin, Kwun Tong, for example, these are satellite cities using the labor-intensive mode to attract a large working population. But with the manufacturing industry moving north and the enhanced traffic network, these satellite cities are outdated. These old development mode, it's outdated. It is second to Hong Kong Island, for example. The community function and provision of services are not comprehensive enough. Rather, Shenzhen, which is a river away, uses a single city layout. It keeps enhancing the city layout, moving into a multi-center model. It eases the commuting stress and the stress on the public transport system. The government should make good use of the outlying islands in order to charter the future of Lantau. Lantau should be built into a diverse, vibrant community that is ideal for working and tourism. I so submit. Thank you, Deputy President. Mr. Martin Liu. I speak in support of Mrs. Regina IP's motion. There are 200 or so islands in Hong Kong, with Lantau being the largest. With Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge being commissioned and Hong Kong International Airport in the vicinity, Lantau Island has many connectivities. It can connect to other GBA cities through Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge. It has geographical advantages. It can connect to the world, acting as a double gateway. Lantau is developing, it is an ideal choice for airport city. But because of the landscaping restrictions, the development is hampered. Over half of the land in Lantau is country parks. Large parcels of land are underutilized. We haven't yet fully utilized these pieces of land. KWOK artificial land strategic positioning can consolidate the status and strength of the double gateway. The islands in the vicinity can complement one another. Lantau has very rich ecological and tourism resources. The government can make good use of these resources to drive the local economy. KWOK artificial islands can make good use of land to drive the local economy and improve livelihood in order to enhance the competitive edge of Hong Kong. Well, I think land is key to future development. We need land for development, so the government built a land reserve, paving the way for the future development of different industries. We need to create capacity. KWOK artificial islands' new land has fewer restrictions, so it is easier to develop the economy. We can use the land in artificial islands to build a new CBD. This will be conducive to building a hub of legal services. The transport system on KWOK artificial islands will connect Hong Kong Island, Kowloon, New Territories, or even the mainland. This can facilitate the integration into the GBA. We can also promote synergized development using bridgehead economy to integrate into the national development with dual circulation. The housing issue has been plaguing the city for a long time. High housing prices, small flats in Hong Kong. The median size per person is 170 square feet, smaller than other areas. This is because we lack a land reserve. I hope there can be more housing developments in KWOK artificial islands so that there is more room. Citizens can live in bigger flats with better living conditions. There will also be more room for entertainment, education, sports, and smart mobility. We can build KWOK artificial islands into an area ideal for living, working, and traveling. The two islands promote the local economy, complement one another to develop conservation, implement the integration between human and nature. So I think that we should continue with the KWOK artificial island development. Members of the public may be concerned about the financial strain on the public coffers. We can consider different measures such as public-private ownership, bonds, issuance, and so on. Lantau comprises new towns and country parks. KWOK artificial islands have the conditions to develop livelihood projects. We can make good use of outlying islands land to give tourists better travel experiences. This can be conducive to the development of Hong Kong economy. I support the motion and other amendments. Dr. So Chang-wing. Thank you, Deputy President. Hong Kong has a lack of land. The population size is large, limiting livelihood in Hong Kong and the development of Hong Kong. Residential areas in Hong Kong account for 80 square kilometers, accounting for 7.2% of the Hong Kong area. Last year, the chief executive in the policy address said that we had already identified enough land for the coming 3 decades. Much as from the northern metropolis and the KWOK artificial islands. On the balanced development and making full use of the land to build a well-supported transport infrastructures. Well, I support Mrs. Regina IP's motion. In developing these two important infrastructures, Hong Kong should make good use of the land resources on outlying islands. Government statistics show that the land area on outlying islands is large, accounting for 16.7% of Hong Kong. The population is only 182,000, accounting for 2.4% of the population in Hong Kong. The density per capita is 1,000 population in Hong Kong. There is great room for development. In the 90s, the transport at the Hong Kong International Airport drove the development. North Lantau has already evolved from a hub of aviation and logistics. There are many people in new towns. There are many tourist attractions. Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, Tuen Mun Chak Lap Kok Link, and Hong Kong International Airport, 3 runway system have been commissioned one after the other. Lantau has the potential or the conditions to develop into a bridgehead economy and an airport city. We should expedite the development. So, with a mature framework, we can turn it into better account. We can also strengthen the synergized development of KWOK. We can work faster. We can expedite the East Lantau Metropolis development. East Lantau Metropolis and Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge will become the double gateway of Hong Kong. Hong Kong's status will be enhanced in terms of the connectivity with the GBA. The East Lantau Metropolis is some 1,000 hectares. It can provide living spaces for a population of 400,000 to 700,000. There are at least 200,000 job opportunities. There is public consultation about East Lantau Metropolis, and 60% of the people actually support it. On making good use of islands or underutilized pieces of land to build a low-carbon development cluster, such as Mui Wo, low-lying area. Much of the area is private land. Other areas belong to the government. They are government land. We can unleash the land potential to develop public housing. On a different note, the government can enhance transport connectivity and enhance the public infrastructures. Last but not least, we can explore village development and develop low-density housing developments and a tourism layout. The village developments have an area of 266 hectares. We can use these land for development so that outlying islands will be ideal for living, working, and traveling. I so submit.
Mr. Gary Chang. Thank you, President. I'd like to thank Mrs. Regina IP for her motion and the other members for their amendments. Many members mentioned there's a need to take advantage of the geographical location of outlying islands, but then the key is about improving the infrastructure, in particular transport infrastructure. Now, there's an important opportunity for North Lantau because Hong Kong has the target of developing an airport city. So I would like to take this opportunity again to talk about the second airport express link linking up Sunny Bay is really important. the government has just launched the major transport infrastructure blueprint, and then the KWOK link will actually go past Lantau. There will be an additional station at Sunny Bay. We know that Sunny Bay itself is on the way of the Airport Express link going to the airport. So the government could consider building link at Sunny Bay, so we could make use of the Shanghai rail line and so on. So and then we could have a link that links up the airport, the Asia Expo, and so on. And so there will be Airport Express 2.0. There can be the stations at Shanghai and Shenzhen, and in fact there is the possibility of extending it to the Shenzhen airport, and in Hong Kong it will go through Hong Shui Q station, and then we'll take the Airport Express track to link up with the Hong Kong International Airport and the Asia World Expo. Now, for this Airport Express 2.0, the journey time could be really quick, maybe 25 minutes is all we need to go from the Hong Kong International Airport to the Shenzhen Bay BCP, or 30 minutes it will take us to Shanghai. And then the free runway system will be completed soon. So by allowing the commuting of high-end industry practitioners and so on, then this Airport Express 2.0 could consolidate Hong Kong's position as an aviation center. And then it's also beneficial for promoting our convention and exhibition industry. For the existing Airport Express link, well, from airport to Sunny Bay, that we have not actually fully exploited the transport capacity. So if we have an Airport Express 2.0, then we could make good use of the capacity. And if we include this link in the early planning, then we don't need to spend billions of dollars to build an entirely new cross-boundary rail link, but rather we take advantage of the existing unused capacity, and then we could build a rail link that will link up with Shenzhen and so on at relatively low cost. And then, of course, for Guangdong foreign visitors, they can enjoy 140 hours of visa-free access. If there is an Airport Express, there's an express link, rail link from linking up Lantau, and then for the Sunny Bay and other places, and there will be this special link for visitors and business travelers. So it's actually a win-win situation for all. So I want the government to make good use of land resources, especially government should seize upon the opportunities to be presented by planned projects, and then we could further promote economic development. Mr. Kennedy Wong. Thank you, Deputy President. Mrs. Regina moves this motion optimizing the use of land resources by expediting the development of outlying islands. It points out how Hong Kong could further leverage on its advantages and make good use of land resources. This is an important subject, and I support her motion. We need to speed up the optimizing of huge land resources in outlying islands. I support Mr. Frankie YICK's amendments too. Lantau Island has strategic location and traffic and transport network, so it should be capitalized upon to develop the logistics-related industries. Hong Kong has always been an important logistics hub in the region. Trade and logistics are among the four pillar industries in Hong Kong. They account for some 20% of our GDP. In the 14th Five-Year Plan, the central authorities gave explicit support for Hong Kong to develop into an aviation center, logistics hub, and internationally. So that the direction of development for Hong Kong has been mapped out. But then there are various domestic and external complex factors. So now the logistics sector in Hong Kong faces immense challenge. There is little scope for development. Now the Northern Metropolis project is being taken ahead at full steam, so many of the logistics operations need to be relocated, but then there is a lack of suitable locations. So insufficient land resources stifle the development of the logistics industry, and if the logistics industry cannot develop well, it will jeopardize Hong Kong's position as an international commerce and trade center. Now, I represent the import and export sector, so I'm very much concerned about these issues. I think our logistics business depends very much on e-commerce in the Greater Bay Area. And then Hong Kong must be an aviation and logistics hub too. Now, the Lantau is close to the airport. So for GBA e-commerce sector, we could become a logistic hub for the development of e-commerce. And then the government must bear in mind the needs of the logistics sector. There must be sufficient land reserved, and they must be of a large enough scale so that we could build a logistics park. And then we could make use of the Hong Kong International Airport for developing our logistics center. At the same time, we can make use of the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge and other infrastructure to extend our logistics network to the whole of the Guangdong province. Now, for Guangdong province, by 2030, GDP will reach 1.57 trillion US dollars. That's in 2023. So it has economic scale much larger than some countries such as Russia, and so this is an important opportunity for us. And while we optimize the use of land resources, we must consider traffic and transport network. So in the, say, logistics park, shall we not develop a high-speed 5G network, and then we could develop green and smart transport in the park. Now, on how we could make use of resources, speed up the development of the outlying islands as a whole, the government needs to have more vision. It should consider the target of developing Hong Kong into an international aviation and logistics hub and come up with long-term policies. As we develop land, we also have to bear in mind environmental protection. Only then can we have sustainable and high-quality development. Mr. Chen Hok-fung, Mr. Wai-keung, Mr. Yim Kong's their amendments further enrich the content of the original motion, and I think their ideas are feasible. So I speak in support of the motion and the amendments. Mr. Andrew Lam. Deputy President, I would like to thank Mr. Regina IP for moving the motion and the 4 members for moving the amendments. Lantau has an area of 148 square meters. It is the largest island in Hong Kong. If we compare it to the new territories, one side is Kong Kong, the other side is Tuen Mun. But yes, it's a vast area, but there are many hills and mountains. So we need massive site formation works if we want development on Lantau. But then that does not constrain the development of Lantau. Hong Kong, Lantau could allow us to be linked to the peripheral west and to the rest of the world. So it's important. It has strategic importance, and then it has good conservation value, and it would be a good place for health and wellness development. Hong Kong has a shortage of land for years. And the government has spent much effort in consulting public on land supply and strategies. And then there have been many discussions on development in Lantau. So all we need now is the determination to take action and seize upon opportunities presented by the economy. Now, when Hong Kong first became a city, of course, we did not have many flat land parcels, and instead we go up the hills to build houses, and we put warehouses along the coast. So we could rely on engineers to overcome many of the technical challenges. But then any site location must be strategic, and then any development needs the support of infrastructure. There's need for transport connectivity. Now, Lantau is close to Zhuhai, Macau, and some parts of Shenzhen, but then there is no internal road network. So these are the shortcomings of Lantau. Now we're talking about developing industries in the northern part of Lantau, but at the same time we have to bear in mind we are supposed to be an aviation and logistics hub, and then for we must not overlook the potential in the neighboring cities too, in Guangdong province. So we need to provide sufficient land for development. We need to transform the core areas and build infrastructure. Otherwise, we cannot really stay competitive enough. So that's why for the central waters reclamation, it has strategic importance. If we look at the outlying islands, Discovery Bay, Cheung-Chau, Ping-Chau, Lemma Island, Hailing-Chau, Sheku-Chau, there will be developments. And then Cheung-Sha, Pui-O, and the Soko Islands have nice scenery. So there is a huge potential for leisure tourism. There is room for development, but it's fragmented. We need a comprehensive strategy. The core should be the central waters reclamation. Otherwise, all such fragmented developments won't be of much use. For example, Hong Shui-Kiu, Kutong North, people are not keen in talk about it, but then people are excited when there's talk of the northern metropolis. Lantau is huge, so there could be many possibilities. With the Green Mountains, that means there's much potential for development. But at the same time, we need to make sure there is proper conservation, because then we will have set a good stage for development of health and wellness and related industries. Now we can make use of the remote islands, and then there we could preserve some of the rare species. There will be more value that way than building just one or two villas on an island. For Lantau and the nearby waters, there are immense development opportunities. But we can't just keep talking and discussing ideas. Now, say for Landmar Island, the ex-quarry site of 20 hectares has been left idle for over 20 years. So we need to have proper development and conservation for us to tell good stories about Hong Kong. And there, Lantau presents a good opportunity for telling a good story of Hong Kong. Thank you.
Ms. Chen Yunming. Thank you, Deputy President. I speak in support of the motion and the amendments. The Lantau Island is the largest outlying island in Hong Kong. Development of outlying islands means developing the Lantau Island. In 2014, the government proposed development on Lantau Island. An advisory council was established comprising community leaders and professionals. Now, 10 years on, true, there are a number of development projects on Lantau, but there is a lack of publicity, and it gives people the perception that the progress is slow. We need to move quicker. I support the development on the Lantau Island. I have two suggestions. First, development of industries relies on a comprehensive transportation network. We are a transportation hub, and the Lantau Island is located at a strategic position. The strategy mentions that we would tap on the Lantau Island's unique position to make it a double gateway. However, whenever there is a traffic accident, land transport to the Lantau Island is completely halted. In the future, there will be some 140,000 more people in Tung Chung New Town. However, half of the road projects connecting the area is still in the study phase, so we have to speed up. In terms of internal transport. We have several rural committees in the Lantau, on the Lantau Island, and during the war of resistance era, we have the Dongjiang Battalion and other martyrs fighting in the area. Now the roads are narrow and the terrain is hilly. So the government should enhance the transportation network in the area and make it more accessible. Now I support the development of eco-tourism in the area. The government is taking forward the idea of the Southern Lantau Ecological Corridor. More drivers will be allowed to drive to Lantau. But it will undermine the resilience and condition of the roads on the Lantau Island. So we have to enhance the road condition of the area quicker. In the 2023 policy address, the government will launch the characteristic local tourism attraction subsidy scheme. So I think in Lantau, we can take forward tourism with various themes. For example, a Great Buddha is an important landmark. There are many Buddhists flocking to Hong Kong to pay tribute to the Buddha. And more people are mindful of their mental well-being. So Lantau Island is a good place for people to meditate. We can create a religious and spiritual ambience on the island to enrich our tourism resources and make our industry more diversified. Thank you. Mr. Louis Leung. Deputy President, Hong Kong is a place with little land and a lot of people. All along, our governments have attached importance to land creation. In 2020 and 2023, in his policy addresses, the Chief Executive explicitly proposed to increase land supply with greater efficiency, quality, quantity, so as to address the housing issue. Now, I fully support the idea of fully utilizing our land resources. We have some 1,100 square kilometers of land, 20% of which are located on outlying islands, including the Lantau Island. They account for some 238 square kilometers of landmass, which is even larger than Hong Kong Island and the Kowloon Peninsula combined. So we have to develop land resources on outlying islands. Some said that we have to maintain a rural ambience. So they are reluctant to embrace the idea of development. In fact, developments can be a win-win scenario. According to the Hong Kong 2030 Plus strategy, it is expected that between 2019 and 2048, the 30-year land demand would be 5,800 to 6,200 hectares. These lands will be used for commercial and housing purposes. It also includes GIC as well as infrastructure and public open space. Take Lantau Island as an example. In December 2017, the Sustainable Lantau Office was established. It was tasked to take forward the overarching development principle of developments in the north and conservation for the south under the Sustainable Lantau Blueprint. Assessments and planning were conducted. There were also improvement projects as well as recreational and leisure projects. This office, however, is only responsible for development on Lantau, but not other outlying islands. Besides famous tourism spots like Changzhou and the Lamma Island. We also have the east with the Tongping Chao, Kat-o, Yim Jai, and other famous outlying islands, poised to become tourism hotspots for cultural and historical tourists. However, infrastructure is a must. Without transportation, we can't develop tourism on these outlying islands. There must be convenient water transport, pier facilities, coverage of 5G network, and don't forget toilets. The government should actively consider the experience gained in the energizing Kowloon East office and the invigorating Island South project, where a body is set up to steer development of the areas. We must enhance the accessibility of outlying islands and also improve the public facilities on the islands. For Changzhou, Lamma Island, and Changzhou with a lot of residents, the government should adopt the single-site multiple uses principle to redevelop the derelict facilities on these islands and make the best out of the land resources. Studies should be conducted to identify underutilized land for housing and economic purposes, so as to enhance the living standard of residents on outlying islands. Thank you. Mr. Lai KWOK. President, I speak in support of Mrs. Regina IP's motion. Hong Kong has a total area of 1,115 square kilometers. Now, the outlying island is only a district among the 18 districts, but it accounts for 16% of our land mass. There are some 180,000 people living on outlying islands, accounting for 30% of our population. But for developed land, they only account for 2.5%. There are 20 outlying islands. More than 80% of the land mass are located in Lantau. We must speed up developing land resources on the Lantau Island. I'm not saying that all 147 square kilometers land on Lantau should be developed. No. But one of our soft powers as an international financial center is the convenience to fly between urban areas and rural areas. A lot of foreign talents enjoy this. During weekends, they would travel to our countryside to enjoy the nature. Now I support the 2017 development principle of developments in the north and conservation for the south, which strikes a balance between development and conservation. It's a shame that, like other development proposals, the progress is underwhelming. For example, the topside development of the Siu-Ho-Wan Depot. In the Rose Garden project proposed before the reunification, the site was proposed to become a new town. After the return to the motherland, the plan didn't realize. Now, it was only in last February that the government proposed an in situ land exchange with the MTRC and put up the first phase developments for tender. It's a shame, again, that the tender was withdrawn. Now, property market is doing worse than a year ago. Even if more concessions are made on the in the tendering process by the MTRC, we still don't know whether the tender will be a success. This is the project with the most development potential on Lantau Island. So What about other projects? I'm very pessimistic. And also transportation is key. Now there is only one road plying between each part of the Lantau Island and other urban areas. They are Tongchung Road and South Lantau Road. When there are accidents, for example, the accident which took place in January last year, the entire Lantau would be paralyzed. So how should we develop the Lantau Island? Or whether it is for housing, for conservation, or for tourism, we have to enhance the transportation infrastructure in the area. Now, besides developing the land resources on the islands, we can't neglect the KWOK artificial island nearby. Even with the Office for Financing Major Development Projects, is the government really capable of taking forward 2 mega-scale projects simultaneously? We are yet to learn about the details of the projects to make a judgment, but we have the responsibility to remind the government the factors we are considering now is very different. When the project was proposed, the financial health of the government was much better. And also there wasn't the Northern Metropolis blueprint. So I think we have to revisit the idea. Thank you.
Mr. Ma Fong-kwok, President, comparing Singapore and Hong Kong is a common phenomenon, including economic development, political climate, education, and benefits. Land use and public services are more often than not directly compared. Once upon a time, Singapore sent personnel to Hong Kong to study our development mode. Singapore has been receiving rounds of applause in terms of living environment. Singapore is even smaller than Hong Kong, but most of the land of Singapore is managed by the government. But much of the land in Hong Kong has not been utilized well. For Lantau and the another 216 islands are as such. So I support Mrs. Regina IP's motion to expedite the development of outlying islands. We have grey water, mountains, and so on. We have international financial center in the urban area, but then in the suburban area, we have great scenery, which is well liked by tourists from all over the world. Many people like living on the islands, taking ferry to Central. They don't mind. There are many countries that use islands to develop their tourism. You may question why not many expats come to Hong Kong for travel. Actually, there is a lack of resorts in Hong Kong. We can't even find one. People turn to other places for a getaway. I'm not talking about Lei Yu Mun Resort. Instead, I do mean the resorts that are well liked by tourists. Usually tourists stay for 2 to 3 days to relax, to unwind. But for Zhuhai, Shenzhen, Dongguan, there's no lack of these resorts, but then Hong Kong has none. A long time ago, Hong Kong already developed these developments. That is the basic framework of the sustainable Lantau blueprint, using airport land to develop the overarching principle of development in the north and conservation for the south. Disneyland is developed into a tourist attraction, but because of different reasons such as conservation, it was not implemented smoothly. The conflict between development and conservation has been hampering the development of Hong Kong. Actually, if we are not What I mean, as long as we have sufficient consultation while protecting wildlife animals, and creating better living conditions for children in subdivided flats, to create better living conditions for the people of Hong Kong, this is the best planning for the community. That is how we can make good use of the good environment we have in Hong Kong. There are many limitations on the infrastructures on islands. So how can the administration build a larger land reserve? We splash out on Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge and Tuen Mun Chek Lap Kok Link. How can we make good use of these infrastructures? Tomorrow, Lantau Vision suggested the KWOK artificial island. On the one hand, we can conserve nature. On the other hand, we can also build good infrastructures. We also have a good transport network and have good land reserve for Hong Kong. We can also improve the living conditions for the people in Hong Kong. I hope that we can continue with the development impetus in Hong Kong so that we can provide better living conditions for the people of Hong Kong. We should think from the comprehensive perspective. I will suspend the meeting at 6:40 p.m. I speak while Mr. Tang Fei. I support Mrs. Regina IP's motion. Hong Kong is small. We have many people in Hong Kong. For Lantau, Lemma Island, which are far-flung area, the landscape is more complex. There have been many proposals about the development of outlying island, not least Lantau. For Mui Wo, Northern Lantau, Eastern Tung Chung, Siu Ho Wan development blueprint. There are many blueprints like this. In recent years, Lantau Island is often debated. In 2007, the Lantau blueprint was rolled out. Lantau Development Advisory Committee was also set up to seize upon the opportunities of the PRD. That is to develop the area into a logistics hub, to build a low-carbon community that is ideal for living, working, and traveling. That is for the development of public housing as well as recreation. In 2018, in the policy address, Tomorrow Lantau Vision was announced. The purpose of the project was to connect to other GBA cities, internally to connect to the CBD in Central to meet different demands, as well as easing the pressure on Northwest New Territories. The government is getting more and more ambitious. There are Northern Metropolis, KWOK artificial island projects. In 2023, the policy address mentioned unleashing land potential, including revitalizing Hong Ham Station area and the Lemma Island ex-quarry area. Over half of the 16,000 hectares is subject to limitations. Different sectors have been proposing different ideas. Some focus on development, some focus on reclamation, on land planning. The government is not consistent in the eyes of the public. Do we need to expedite the development of outlying islands? Which mode of development should we use? Members of the public may think that the different terms of the government might have different views. With good governance right now, we need to give members of the public a clear idea. That is what the future development of outlying islands will look like. The focus of the main engine of development is dual development mode. There are areas for financial services. The northern end of the northern metropolis is beautiful. It has great scenery. We can balance development and conservation to build a high-quality recreation space. There is a theme park in Lantau. We also have the airport as well as the 3-runway system at the airport. These are existing facilities, what we already have. It has great potential for leisure and recreation. I'm not saying that we shouldn't develop Lantau Island. Instead, it should be developed in such a way that it is sustainable in order to provide a garden, green space for members of the public. To develop Lantau Island, we need to consult members of the public. This way, we can build a beautiful garden for Hong Kong. I so submit. Thank you, President. Mr. Lau Kok-fung. Thank you, President. I fully support the original motion of Mrs. Regina IP. We make good use of land resources to develop outlying islands. I appreciate the administration's efforts in the past few years. So, a lack of land does not hamper the development of local economy and the improvement of livelihood. We have land sufficient for public housing in the coming decade. In the past, we focused on how we could explore land to build public housing for members of the public. Right now, it is time for us to focus our attention on other land uses apart from public housing. How can we develop different industries? How can we better position these industries so that we can drive the local economy? Meanwhile, just now we also mentioned Lantau, like the northern metropolis. The government's mindset needs to change. Be it new territories or outlying islands, they are quite far away from the city center. It is the north of Hong Kong and the south of Shenzhen. Lantau is the same. With the commissioning of Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, there is also the international airport connecting GBA cities to other places around the world. It acts as a double gateway. It is good for converging talents from around the world. It is also conducive to the local economic development. We have artificial island projects as well as the Tomorrow Lantau vision. In any event, we should better position Lantau. Apart from the principle of development in the north and conservation for the south, when we work on development, how can we build the airport city, leveraging on these strengths to develop some industries? How can we take advantage of the geographical location? This is important. We can connect the two metropolises in Hong Kong. For KWOK artificial islands, it is an important strategy. It can unleash the strategic value of the airport city and other metropolises. Whatever the pace, the artificial islands is important to the future of Hong Kong. When we need to unleash the potential of Lantau, infrastructures matter. Many infrastructures need to be connected to Lantau Island, and we do need space to do so. KWOK artificial islands is a good vantage point. There is a lack of areas for handling the inert wastes. Together with a couple of members, I went to my home country. I went to Taishan. Over 700 hectares of waste. What is the concept? How much? KWOK artificial islands is 1,000 hectares. So we have already accumulated 70% of the area of KWOK Artificial Island. So KWOK Artificial Island is key. Llama Island, Lantau, Changchao, blue and green tourism also matter. For example, KWOK and so on. So how can we develop the blue and green economy or tourism? We need to change. In the past, planning was quite rigid. Natural resources were not turned to tourism resources. I hope that the government will remove obstacles so that these resources will be turned into better account to develop accommodations with features and so on. We also need some task forces to provide one-stop services such as hostels, tourism, resorts. I hope the administration can dispense with red tape in order to expedite the development. Mr. Tony.
Mr. Tony Chair. Thank you, President. We always say that in Hong Kong we're short of land and with a dense population. But then Mrs. Regina IP pointed out in her original motion that there are many outlying islands in Hong Kong, including the Lantau Island, where land is not fully utilized. Why are we being so wasteful? I think there are two reasons. One is about planning. Secondly is about infrastructure support. We take Lantau as an example. 3/4 of land is now zoned to country parks. If we want to use such land for other purposes, there are restrictions, and the whole planning application process is time-consuming. Now, the Robin's Nest Country Parks has been gazetted, and we considered the subsidy legislation was tabled. Now, why is it that over the years we are adding more country parks and not taking away any? I'm all for environmental protection. For sites with high ecological value, we need to conserve it. I'm all for that. But then, at the same time, shouldn't the government review all the existing country parks? Is it true that they all still have high ecological value and need to be protected? Could a small portion of the land be rezoned for other purposes in light of the latest situation in Hong Kong? Now, another reason why there is little development in the outlying islands because there is no infrastructure support. In particular, for transport links to the urban areas, Cheng Yi Island and aptly Chow were reclaimed islands, but now with they have comprehensive road network, they've become part of the urban areas. For Lantau, there is the Cheng Yi Link, Tung Chung line, and also the Airport Express link. At the same time, there's the link to the Greater Bay Area through the Hong Kong-Macau Bridge. But then on the island, there is not other transport network, so only a small portion of land is developed. The government proposed the principle of development in the north and conservation for the south. It's been 7 years, we're not seeing much impact. For the new for the airport in Tung Chung, we're not making good use of the $800 billion Hong Kong-Macau Bridge to promote further development of industries. Mr. YICK proposes the development of logistics industries, but then even for conservation for the south, where we're not really conserving the ecological resources there, we're not making good use of those resources either to add to our economic benefit. And then Mr. Yim Kong proposes the development of industries such as tourism, health and wellness, environmental and new energy industries. Now, the southern part of Lantau is actually close to Hong Kong Island. For example, Lemon Island. Some 10 years ago, when I was the chairman of the panel on development, I led electrical study tour to visit the ex-quarry site in Lemmer Island, and we talked to residents and officials about speeding up the development in Lemmer Island, in particular the ex-quarry site. But 10 years has passed. Development has not picked up at all in Lemmer Island. It's most disappointing. Now, property prices have plummeted, a few land auctions failed. Some say that we don't need so much land, we just need to rely on the Northern Metropolis development to supply sufficient land. So some have suggested deferring the KWOK Artificial Islands project. I don't agree. We have learned our lessons over the past 20 years. There is need for us to build a large enough land bank. And then we need to improve the living condition of the people of Hong Kong. At the same time, a land bank is important for the development of industries. And then for the proposed transport infrastructure, linking up Lantau to Hong Kong Island, Northern Metropolis, and the whole Greater Bay Area. Such infrastructure is important. So that's why we need to support these projects. I speak in support of the motion and all the amendments. Thank you. Mr. Peter Shiu. Thank you, President. I'd like to thank Mrs. Regina IP for moving this motion on optimizing the use of land resources by expediting the development of outlying islands, because land resources are so important to Hong Kong. Now, outlying islands are the largest of the 18 districts in Hong Kong. They account for 16% of all the land area. And Lantau, of course, the largest island, is twice the size of Hong Kong Island. In outlying lines, we have the airport, we have the Hong Kong Macau Bridge. These are major infrastructure projects. It's an important gateway for Hong Kong to connect the Greater Bay Area and the world. Now, for the Hong Kong 2030 plus and the Sustainable Lantau Blueprint, we see that Lantau has strategic importance in the future development of Hong Kong. Now, Lantau has a good geographical location. The third runway is soon to be commissioned, and then there's extension of the Tung Chung New Town, and this all in the northern part of Lantau. And for Sunny Bay, the Hong Kong Disney Resort, this is where many visitors come. And then that's to the south, and then to the west of Lantau, we have the Tai O stilted houses and the parade, boat parade, and many visitors go there to see these events. So Hong Kong should leverage on advantage of being backed by the country and being well connected to the world, and then we should turn the North Lantau into a logistics hub. And we could also develop tourism. We can bring more visitors to Hong Kong. For the southern part of Lantau, it's all been regarded as a conservation area. We have the mangroves and so on. These are precious ecological resources, so there is little development. Yes, development in the north and conservation for the south are the guiding principles, but it doesn't mean that we cannot develop Lantau South altogether. The government could consider certain uses that go well with the natural environment. For example, the Liberal Party suggested some years ago about leveraging on the rich tourism resources, ecological resources in Lantau. We could have spa resorts, we could have other recreational and tourism uses. And then the policy address last year suggested special themed tourism, green and blue tourism, and so on. I believe Lantau is a good candidate for such developments. So how do we develop blue resources? I've written articles on that recently. Now, in summer, our residents like to go to the Philippines or Thailand for the beach and for the sun. But in Hong Kong, we have the same condition. We have many islands surrounded by the sea. So how can we also develop our islands because they are advantages, and then people could just go there for fun, and we could also bring visitors over, in particular those from the mainland. We don't have to go so far as the Philippines or Thailand for the beach. So I think the government could give strong support to some groups or operators. They can explore how they could develop Lantau Island or nearby islands. Then we could make good use of our island resources. Now, we often consider ways to reinvigorate our tourism. I think this is an important development. Okay, the resources are there, but then there's need for support facilities. For example, we need to build a pier on an island, and then we need to provide infrastructure, and then there must be ferry services to take people to different islands. Now, all these cannot be done by developers on their own. There is a need for strong government support. So I hope the government will set up task forces to explore resources in the area, and then we could develop more tourism destinations and bring visitors here. Thank you. Dr. Johnny Ng. President, I'm grateful to Mrs. Regina for moving this motion on optimizing the use of land resources by expediting the development of outlying islands. Land shortage has been bothering Hong Kong for many years, and making good use of land resources is key to resolving the housing shortage. At the same time, for other people, livelihood matters such as health care, elderly care, and so on, is the land resource is important. And then we need to enhance our competitiveness as well. I'd like to make 3 suggestions. Now, for the Hong Kong 20 plus towards a planning vision and strategy transcending 2030, there's a report published in November, and then we'll need 5,800 to 6,200 hectares of land by 2048. And we've already identified some land. We still need some 3,000 plus hectares of land. So the government needs to build capacity, and outside of 3,200 hectares, the government will still need to identify about 4,100 hectares of land, and then for the artificial islands, they will provide 1,000 hectares of land, and that will be enough for us to meet our needs till 2048, and there's still land for building a land bank. I think the government's moving in the right direction in that regard. But then, of course, there is heated debate about the mega projects, and the focus is not so much that we need such projects, but rather these projects take too long to be completed, and they can't address our pressing needs. So when we want to address the land shortage issue, it's about speeding up all the work. And then secondly, the government needs to see through its strategy of infrastructure-led development. There's a need to boost speed and efficiency in various transport infrastructure projects, so that we could have a comprehensive traffic and transport network. Internally, that means there will be good connectivity for different sites to be developed, and then we need to strengthen connectivity with GBA cities as well. And then, of course, we are an international financial center, and we could develop further in that area. And then, thirdly, our outlying islands are known for their beauty. So, and they also rich land resources. Apart from building housing, that we could develop water sports activities or resort hotels with multi-functions. And then we could have a tourism resort circle, holiday resort circle. And at the same time, we could have health and wellness village estates as well. Now, Hong Kong has advanced healthcare services. The government should promote the industrialization of healthcare services. For example, on outlying islands, we could build healthcare facilities, health and wellness facilities, holiday resorts, and then we could export our quality healthcare services that will increase government revenue and also lessen the burden on healthcare spending. And then on the outlying islands of Lantau, we could build car racing tracks, and there should be international racing events. Now, Hong Kong claims itself to be an Asia's sports city, And so car racing is an important sport. So if we promote car racing, it could help to promote our economic development as well. In the long run, we need to build a car racing circuit for Hong Kong. On the whole, I support Mrs. Regina IP's motion. The government needs to consider the overall interests of the community and actively provide land supply in the near term, medium term, and long term. And also there should be various approaches to develop more land so that we will have stable and sustainable supply of land. For both private land, government land, commercial land, or community facilities land, we need balanced development in any case. And then we could respond to the aspirations of the public. So I speak.
Ms. Eunice Yung. President, I speak in support of Mrs. Regina IP's motion on optimizing the use of land resources by expediting development of outlying islands. I also agree with all the amendments. The amendments mainly focused on infrastructure and transportation support. In 2017, under the Sustainable Lantau Blueprint, the principle of development in the north and conservation for the south was raised. I'm a member of the Lantau Advisory Council. I've received the report on sustainable development on Lantau. The ideas are brilliant. But I believe it would help much if we have an outlying islands development advisory council. All the issues mentioned by members today, including the new town extension of Tung Chung Pt1 Road, as well as enhancement of the South Lantau Road network, these are all covered by the feasibility study. We have been promoting these issues within the advisory council, but the progress has been slow. For example, the feasibility study on expanding the South Lantau Road network, it was only in last March that we began the feasibility study for improving south-north connection on Lantau. The idea was floated in 2017, and only now do we have the feasibility study on connecting the north and south. If we are to enhance the connection between north and south by improving the infrastructure, it is too late to start the feasibility study just last year. So the government really needs to keep up with time. With the promulgation of the blueprint, it is reasonably expected to see some initial results after the promulgation of the blueprint and commissioning of facilities and infrastructure in 5 years' time. So in the future, the government has to compress the timetable further in terms of environmental impact assessments and feasibility study. These should be carried out simultaneously with consultation. There are some measures in terms of conservation in the south, for example, habitats with ecological values in Puyo, Taio, and Shuihao. The studies have finished. There is also the Lantau Conservation Fund, and there is also a study to prevent fly tipping in the area, and also study to promote historical and cultural tourism in the area. These are all applaudable. Now, I can't share with you the internal discussion of the advisory council, but back in 2017, in the blueprint, there was a comprehensive diagram showing what we will have. We will have a cultural and historical trail. We will have a cycling track, mountain bike trail, flowery sports, and also other activities in Taio. These are strewn over the coast of the South Lantau. I think this is good use of the land resources. But if you want to enhance the tourism package, you need accommodation, you need catering services. You need resting spots and also cycling tracks. It should be a comprehensive package. So in terms of conservation in the south and the eco-recreational zone, the government should give more thoughts on attracting footfall and retaining the visitors. And the government must be ready to consult the public. There should be a major consultation body to consult as stakeholders on outlying islands. This will go far in terms of utilizing the land resources for conservation and enhancing tourism. Thank you. I now suspend the meeting until 9 a.m. tomorrow.